Well, I think from a statewide perspective, most of the political attention is on New Orleans. It's a huge, it's a huge uh, population center in Louisiana. It's the mayor's race is always a big deal. It's very important who's the next mayor. So you have a state treasurer's race going on at the same time, which is a statewide election. It's a very important job, not so much for the duties, but because of the image and the availability of the whoever wins, the availability of being a very powerful uh, spokesman for on the budget. So, but it's an off year in Louisiana. There's really nothing going on except those two elections and some other scattered elections. But the treasurer's race is pretty important. The last two of the last three treasurers ended up in the United States Senate. So, and of course, the mayor of New Orleans, whoever wins that, is a very powerful position. Also, it affects state politics. Also, when you come to the Capitol, the mayor of New Orleans has a lot of his legislators down there that are large enough where they play a role at the state capitol. So those are very important elections in Louisiana, and yet it'll be interesting to see the turnout. The turnout right now for the treasurer's race, Steve, we're talking about what's called super chronics, maybe super chronics, 20% or so, and then New Orleans. I don't really have a feel for that. Will it get to 50%? I don't know. The mayor's races haven't been that. They Years ago they got a lot more voters than they do now. So the turnout, I don't know what the turnout will be, but it certainly won't be any huge event related to lots of voters.
Okay, let's first talk about the treasurer's race. What's going on there?
Well, you've had these dueling polls, which is really silly because um, I'm in the polling business. If I ran a poll and asked the public to name me one of the candidates running for treasurer, maybe 2% of Louisiana could come up with a name. Basically, you'd almost have to call one of their supporters. They are starting to get on TV, so that'll help with the name recognition and the candidates. But it's pretty wide open. Nobody can tell you right now who's going to be in the runoff. Um, it you have a Democrat who should be in the runoff, but that's you're probably going to have a very low black turnout. So how will that affect the race? Generally, when you get into that lower turnout, it's generally the whites will end up being 75% of the vote, and blacks will end up being about 25, which is 7 points dilution of their strength, I guess you would have to put it.
Okay,
But
so yeah, go on.
I don't really have a favorite in it. I mean, I haven't seen any poll that convinced me that there's anyone has a greater opportunity to make the runoff than anyone else. And until they really saturate television, which they don't have the money to saturate television, which is another problem, this is one of these, who knows how it'll turn out.
So the only poll I've seen was one that was, and I'm sure that you saw it also, was one that was with the Angel Davis camp that had her ahead, and the two legislators were way behind.
Well, at that time, I don't think she had been on television and hadn't done anything.
Okay.
So how would she be that high? So look, when someone releases a poll, it's going to say their person's ahead, or they wouldn't release it, except if you've gone from nobody knowing you to in second place. So I take those with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Somebody when I put that up, somebody said to me, "How in the world can she be basically have three times the numbers that two legislators would have who have at least have had a lot of visibility with it within their own districts.
Well, outside of Baton Rouge, nobody knows her. I don't know what it is today as we speak, but not at that point in time. So, I'm in the polling business. I tend not to do those type of things. I don't let my name be used. There are pollsters who allow their name to be used to inflate numbers and do whatever else they have to do to make their candidate look good.
Sure.
So he's always shied away from that. And if any candidates ask us to do it, go hire somebody else. So that's our position on it.